This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, lob to Mobley, pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers came away with a crucial win in Game 5 against the Orlando Magic. No Jared Allen in this one. Cavs got a team effort from all of the fellas stepping up and getting this win. I'm so excited, but I'm also exhausted. This game has taken an emotional toll on me. So if I'm not screaming from the rooftops, forgive me. But joining me today is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
When the hell is Evan Mobley?
I'll scream for you. Sorry if I woke up my wife. I mean, what a crazy game, man. In so many ways, it did feel like Orlando kind of collectively came out and said, let's throw our best shot at these guys. Let's play as physical as we can. See if we can kind of take let the momentum of that kind of carry us through. Paolo goes absolutely banana pancakes in this game. 39 points on 24 shots, 8 rebounds. On a diet of pretty tough shots for the most part. And you take the hits, you take the blows, and you find a way to compete and you find a way to win. And without being too reductive, I mean, what probably the most important game of the modern Cavaliers era, and you're down Jared Allen, and a lot of things don't go your way, but they just kind of fought and gritted out a win, which after being so critical of them for letting go of the rope the last couple games, was really encouraging to see.
Yeah, I don't think you're being reductive at all. I mean, I'm 30 or 40 years old, and I don't need this kind of stress from a game like this. This is the first time in my life as being a Cavs fan that the Cavs have won a crucial playoff game, a Game 5 when you're tied 2-2 without LeBron James. Like, that's a significant accomplishment. That's the first time I've seen it happen. And, when people talk about, questioning this team and wondering, do they have what it takes to win a playoff series? Do they have what it takes to take a step beyond that? So often what you hear from people is, show me. I need to see it. I need to see them step up in a moment like this. And, from Jared Allen being out in this game, which, what a devastating kind of last minute blow it is to have that happen. From him being out to Donovan Mitchell battling through what he's dealing with, clearly not right with that knee, to Darius Garland with his back, like every single, the discrepancy in terms of like physicality that was allowed one way or versus the other, or at least how it seemed to feel that way. And you could tell that was a sentiment shared by the team there. From all of those factors, I think there was a lot of opportunities for them to fold, for them to not meet the moment and not step up in this way. So for them to step up in this way, to me, it's really significant. And like, that's probably why like my reaction right now is almost like a zen, like almost a sigh of relief. Like I'm feeling more relief than ecstatic energy. I'm sure I'll feel ecstatic tomorrow, but right now I feel relief because this is the first time we've seen it from this group. This was as tough of an environment and as tough of a game as you can possibly have. As you mentioned, Paolo Banchero going absolutely nuts. Superstar performance from him. And for them to step up in this way, like, it's meaningful to me. Like, it's significant to me. This is what we didn't get in Game 5 last year when we're like, okay, let's at least extend this series and force the Knicks to close this out in 6. That wasn't what we got, and this was one of the more gritty, tough performances I've seen from this Cavs team in a season where they've overcome a ton of adversity.
Yeah, man. Gosh, where do we start? I think we got to start with the big dog. The big dog.
When the hell is Evan Mobley?
Because even in this game, Evan was really struggling. Jarrett said it's been Jarrett's series so far. He's far outplayed Mobley, I would argue, through 4 games of this series. He's been the more consistent finisher, scorer, rebounder, etc. And Mobley is, he's fighting, but Banchero's getting his when he's on him. Orlando, there were stretches where Orlando were really crunching on the boards. His finishing wasn't great. And then you get to the end of the game, and it's 2 dunks, 2 absolute stonewall stops on Banchero, and then the game-saving block. And it's like, oh, that's the guy. That's the guy we thought might propel this team to a higher ceiling, because it was just he took over the game late. And they don't win this game without Evan Mobley.
Yeah, they really don't. And, part of Paolo Banchero getting going, obviously, a large part of it is he's a very special player. Like, this is a guy that's going to be, 8-10-time All-Star, superstar talent. He's amazing. But 3 out of 4 games coming into this one, Evan Mobley has basically, in terms of efficiency, taken him out of those games. He has been dominant defensively on Paolo Banchero. And I think you see in this game, where there's no Jared Allen to kind of take care of that backline defense, like, Mobley needs to be that guy, because Paolo is essentially a point guard. And if you're playing small with Isaac Okoro or Max Strus as kind of your nominal power forward, you can't have Evan Mobley starting off defensive possessions at the top of the 3-point arc or guarding Paolo out there, right? So I thought Isaac battled. I thought he did a very good job. He played physical defense on Paolo. He made him work. Marcus Morris, when he came in, made him work. Max Strus made him work, and he was hitting tough mid-range shots. And, this is one of the spots I think sometimes people overstate when they're like, 6'7", Jason Tatum or whatever, shooting over Isaac Okoro. Like, I think sometimes people will make too much of that height discrepancy. But when you got a 6'10" guy like Paolo Banchero, that is a noticeable difference, especially when he's able to create that mid-range space with the strength that he has as well. But I thought Isaac did a great job. And, those late possessions where Paolo's hitting shots over Mobley, like, it's tougher to shut a guy's water off once he's already got it going, once he's already in a rhythm that he's established on other players. But I think, this is one of those situations where you felt the absence of Jared Allen because it meant that you were no longer able to put Evan Mobley on Paolo Banchero, and that made the night a lot more difficult for the Cavs than it had been in the past.
Yeah, for sure. It was, but they fought. They kind of fought and scrapped their way to it. I thought Isaac did okay. Vinci in the chat actually asked what we thought about them kind of committing to single coverage on Paolo, as opposed to sending hard doubles. And what I would say to that is, it doesn't feel good, but you held him to a 107 offensive rating.
Yeah.
Paolo hit really, really tough shots, and by staying home when you did stonewall him, you forced 5 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of felt like back to game 1, game 2, where the playmaking wasn't there for him, and this Orlando team's full of such great cutters that hard doubles at the top of at the nail. That's a tough guard when you're small on the back line, because you don't have your 2 big lineups. So I liked the single coverage. Maybe some late doubles when he really got a clean angle. But I thought it was defensible.
I like it. It goes back to what we talked about prior to the series, and even going back to the Knicks series, where we felt like the Cavs were almost doing a little bit too much and getting out of their base defense because of Jalen Brunson. You don't want to do that against Paolo Banchero. If it was a situation where Isaac's trying to stay in front of him, and then Paolo's able to, with his physicality, with his footwork, if he's able to kind of get that shoulder around Okoro and get driving to the basket, so that you have to kind of bring that help defender, and you're having breakdowns as a result of that, that's a situation where I think you throw those quick doubles. You try to get the ball out of his hands. You try to, make him make mistakes as a playmaker. If the end result is mid-range jump shots, I will live with that result even if he's hitting them. Like, as you said, it doesn't feel good, but it's keeping you in your defensive position. It's keeping you in position to collect those rebounds too, which is extra important when you're playing without the two bigs, because you're playing small and you kind of need that team effort defensively. And you're not going to get that gang rebound effect if you're also small and outside of defensive rebounding position. So I thought the Cavs were able to stay kind of within their base identity and their base defense. And, the trade-off ended up being worth it. Obviously, you would love to have Jared Allen out there and be able to put Mobley on him. You would love to have Dean Wade. Oh my God, would we love to have Dean Wade in this series? But you don't. And with the personnel that you had, I thought that this was the proper defensive game plan for me.
Yeah, I think obviously we might be talking about it a little different if the Cavs make 2 less threes and they're losing this game and Paolo cooked them on the road to a victory, but sometimes it does matter who wins and who loses. It just does. And
frankly, I wouldn't. Like I
think you'd at least be challenging it of like, hey, we're not winning the game. But like, I think ultimately it's still a defensible strategy. And even though Paolo went nuts, you held him to 103 and made him take hard shots, which, he's looked every bit of a superstar in these last 3 games. But the Cavs made the stops when they needed to, and the difference that I would say on the last few possessions there, as the game was kind of coming to a close, is that he wasn't even getting bad looks. He was getting no chance looks because Evan was on him like white on rice. So it was really, really cool to see. Where do you want to go next? Because there's so many candidates to talk about.
I want to talk about, like, again, I'm being emotional and I'm being sappy here because this is a really, really important win, and I don't think we should understate the significance of this. I want to talk about, you talk about the small margins here of, if we hit, 2 fewer threes or whatnot. Like, in a game like that, in a game like this, every little play matters, and I feel like those little plays were not being done in those road games against Orlando, right? Like Max Strus after the Donovan turnover, getting back in transition and taking a charge. If that's a layup, it's an extra 2 points for Orlando, and that changes the complexion of those late game situations. The one that they challenged, they didn't win the challenge. Broadcast was as befuddled as I was with that, but that was still Max making the right plays. He was making the hustle play to get back and to deter Franz at the line. And, honestly, like, he missed one of those free throws. That ended up mattering. That was significant. All the loose balls that guys were diving for, I thought that the group effort to maximize every single play and to hustle as hard as they did, the gang rebounding, the forcing turnovers, how locked in everyone was defensively, every single one of those possessions matter. And I think too frequently we look at the end of game and we talk about, 1 or 2 plays that wins and loses it. When you're really looking at a basketball game over the 48 minutes, it's all that kind of stuff that puts you in position to either not get burned by, something that doesn't go your way late, or it completely takes you out of that position so that you have a comfortable win, or puts you in position to take a game that you otherwise would not have been in position to take if you didn't have all those kind of plays having that cumulative effect.
Yeah, I mean, I talked before the game about how the Cavs, with Jared out, they were going to have to win with, with scrapping together some offense and then gang rebounding. I was really worried about how, when they've downshifted in this series, how Orlando's been able to kind of beat them up. And they didn't win the rebounding battle tonight. Orlando had 36 defensive rebounds to their 31. But the Cavs took 10 more field goal attempts because they were not getting paraded to the free throw line. So, there were a lot more opportunities for Orlando to grab boards. I don't have the rebound percentages in front of me. I got to imagine they're pretty damn close. And
Cavs did have more offensive rebounds.
Yep.
8 to 7. Yeah.
So like I'm really proud of the team there. I mean, Mobley, 10 defensive boards, 13 total in a game where like with no Jarrett and knowing that Tristan was probably going to be a bit player at most, and that's exactly what he was. He got the 9 minutes Mobley sat. Like, you needed Evan to clean up the boards, and he finished a lot of possessions at a very, very high level, rebounding the ball, and extended a few really key ones with offensive boards. But then you look down the line. Okoro gets 4 in just 23 minutes. Darius gets 5, and a couple of those were going to be Orlando offensive rebounds that he kind of scurried in and picked off. Getting into the fray, picking them off, and then getting the team going on the break.
You don't usually see him water bugging to get rebounds, but that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, and like that's what simply was not happening last year against New York. Donovan gets 6, Strus pulls in 6, Morris pulls in 3. Like, these aren't like crazy numbers, but again, like if you're drawing dead with Orlando on the boards, it just gets really hard for them to win. Even when Paolo goes nuts, and even when they're out shooting you at the line by 10 attempts, like it's just like I just think ultimately you're gonna win the turnover battle more often than not, and their 3-point shooting isn't consistent enough. So like I just think that gang rebounding is really cool, and it also kind of represents, again, going back to that answering the bell, answering the call after getting pretty embarrassed in Orlando. From a physicality perspective of like, we're not just going to ask Evan to do it. We're all going to help.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to see that collective effort, right? And seeing the Cavs come together, and we're all about coming together here on this Chase Down podcast. And where we do that is on Zoom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaborations for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. God, I'm already losing my voice. It's late. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. But I think part of what made this just such a satisfying win and so great was Donovan. He stepped up in the fourth quarter, knocked down 9 of 10 free throws.
Getting to the line was so important for him on another night where the efficiency wasn't quite there, the playmaking wasn't quite there. I don't think it was a banner night for Donovan, but he did help ice the game.
It wasn't. And like, I don't even want to be too harsh on the decision making, because there was times where, Paolo gets switched on to him. And in my head for like a brief second, I'm like, God, just take it to the basket. Like, this is a weaker on ball defender. This is a situation where you should be able to generate some rim pressure. But then you also look how he's moving out there, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, he's going to take a step back 3 because he's just not able to get by him. Right. I thought, obviously he is competing as hard as he can out there. You mentioned the rebound. You mentioned like the effort he's giving. I think it's through the roof. But what I really love about this game was it was other guys stepping up, right? Like the most important, the most significant playoff game for a lot of these guys. And you have Darius setting the pace early in the game, coming out, being assertive, scoring when he needed to. Evan, up and down game at times, but getting those timely buckets towards the end. Max Strus stepping up in a massive way. Marcus Morris being ready to answer the bell after not really playing early in this series.
Man, there's so many players to talk about in this game.
Isaac Okoro knocking down some threes, making some hustle plays, working his ass off defending Paolo Banchero. Every single person contributed to this and helped pick up whatever slack was there from Donovan not being able to contribute at the level that we expect from him, right? And then
28 and 23 is still pretty good.
He's still awesome, right? It's 28 on 23 shots. I will absolutely take that. In playoff basketball, I will take that. But that's, again, that's a reflection of the high standard that he sets. But I just, to me, it's really meaningful that, guys that have been ridiculed, right? Like we said on the last podcast, probably the most consistent player in this series had been Jared Allen. So to have Evan Mobley step up, to have Darius Garland step up, to have Max Strus step up, like the 3 other starters that we really wanted to see put their best foot forward, for all 3 of them to do it in this game, I think it's something that you can really feel good about it as a fan.
Yeah, and I want to talk about each of them individually, if I may. So let's start with Darius, who, comes out like gangbusters. He's getting, I think rightfully a lot of heat for, just being kind of invisible in some of these games. And he goes out and drops 17 in the first quarter. I don't think he had topped 17 thus far in the series. And he only finishes with 23, so he obviously slowed down. But I do feel like it was a great game from Darius, even outside of that first quarter, where I thought whenever he was running the offense felt really healthy. And in the fourth quarter, I really wanted him to run more. I thought Mosley made a hell of a gambit, because Gary Harris goes out. He strains his hamstring. We'll see what happens going into Game 6. 2 days off, but we don't know how serious the strain is. But as a result, he just mega shifts up. He puts in Jonathan Isaac and
says, "Go guard Darius,"
and says, "Hey, Jonathan, go shut Darius's water off." And I thought the Cavs did a really nice job of figuring out how to attack that down the stretch. It was
because that's not something you expect from a game plan standpoint.
I don't think he had guarded Darius a single possession as a primary defender this season.
Yeah, and they had him coming from the weak side corner, kind of that side to side action to get the defense into rotation. That late dish to Evan Mobley, my God, that was significant. And Darius in this game kind of reminds me of Donovan in Game 2, where Donovan just goes off, right? In the first quarter, I think he had 16, 17 points, similar to Darius. And I was sitting next to you, slapping you and being like, Donnie's going for 40, he's going for 40, he's going for 40. And that didn't really materialize. But the rest of the game, there was, the playmaking. It was leveraging the defensive attention that you gained in that first quarter to get other guys going. And I thought Darius almost followed that exact same formula in this game. And one of the things I was thinking about before this game, you're right that he's been scrutinized for the lack of assertiveness. We talked about it on the last podcast where, hey, you went 5 of 11 in a game where no one else can get it going. Like, that's far too efficient on far too low volume. If you've got it going to any extent, you need to be pulling up in those shooting pockets. You need to be recognizing when the mid-range is there rather than driving into the teeth of the defense. You need to be pulling. You need to be assertive. Like, honestly, for how snake-bitten the Cavs have been offensively and how much trouble they've had clicking from three, the fact that prior to this game, he had a game where he was 5 of 11, 1 of 6 of 11, and 1 of 5 of 11, that can't happen. He needs to be more assertive than that. We have talked about it consistently on this podcast.
He talked about it.
He's talked about it. He's talked about it, right? And I almost wonder if the spotlight being on that aspect of his game to this extent and the amount of scrutiny that's happened this year, I almost wonder if it can have a similar effect to what we saw with Jared Allen and physicality against the Knicks series, because it really feels like Darius has become the most common talking point. And, Jared took all the criticism that he received and came back and aggressively attacked that aspect of his game and became such a more physically imposing player and has been dominant in the series. Sometimes I said it, between games 1 and 2, I learn more from my failures than my successes. And I just wonder if, this can be something that hopefully Darius can rally around and become more assertive, because we saw it tonight. We saw it in Game 2 against the Knicks, which was another kind of must-win. If you lose this one, you're really behind the 8 ball type of game. Darius coming out, being assertive, and the Cavs having offensive success because he's being aggressive. I just hope that that's something that he can build upon here.
Yeah, I just felt like he was aggressive. He was decisive. He was straw that stirs the drink, Darius, in this game. By the way, quick shout out to Cavs fans. We got over 200 people hanging out here in the live stream with us. 10 minutes really before midnight. Hell yeah, live chat. We appreciate you. Go Cavs. And yeah, back to Darius. It just felt like a game where he was not kind of doing the dance, the side to sides, the resets, and try to attack in a straight line. Like, that's just never been where he thrives. He thrives when he's catching it on the move, getting guys backpedaling, stopping, starting, yielding, kind of generating an advantage and then pressing that advantage. Some
the floaters that you don't know if it's going to be a floater or a lob.
Yep, and he still could be more aggressive. There was a play where he had hit a couple in a row, and they were still playing the pass, and he tried to dish it to Mobley, and it got picked off. So he could even stand to be more aggressive.
He sidearmed it rather than throwing a lob, and it was a turnover as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So he still isn't perfect. I mean, I actually still would have liked to see him control the offense even more late in the game than he did, but like ultimately,
honestly, I would have liked to see it a lot more in the second half period. Like, forget just the end of the game. I think once Jonathan Isaac checked in, that made things more difficult. And credit to the Cavs for adjusting on the fly to find those ways to get him free. But with Donovan, dealing with everything that he's dealing with, I think that's my big adjustment that I'd like to see in Game 6. I want to see Darius be the primary ball handler because I have not felt like he's been the primary ball handler here. And I just, if Donovan's going to have to give you those contributions in bursts and continue to find the ways to manage this, you want him to not be overly taxed by bringing the ball up against the pressure that you're seeing, right? Like, you want Darius to be able to absorb a lot of that.
Yeah, and like I do feel like they have an action that has yielded a good look when read correctly every time, which is the double screen and pin down in the corner for Darius, where he catches on the pin down into a pick and roll with Evan or Jarrett, and the Magic, especially with Carter or Wagner at the 5, are in that deep drop. They do not want to come up to the level because they don't want to give up the lob. And they also don't want to send help and give up open threes. And like that floater is there for Darius. And these are not, like early in his career, he was like kind of fall in love with these like 14-foot floaters that are like, that's not going to play. Like defense wants you to take those. Those are hard shots. He was getting like 8-foot floaters, like almost to the rim, kind of like basically a wide open shot. Level floaters, and like I feel like that they should start every freaking set with that until Orlando figures out what to do with it, because I think they got 7 or 8 great looks for Darius on that play, and I want to keep seeing it. I think,
and honestly, even if that means having Max initiate it, right? Like we talked about after Game 4, the horn set that runs into those kind of pin downs or pistol actions that they have, like that is yielding good results, and you just kind of need that trigger man. I think Max is a good enough playmaker to kind of ask him to make some of those reads. So if you're getting that constant on-ball pressure with Darius and Donovan, have them give it up to Max and set that up. Whether that's one of the guards being involved in kind of that horn set, which as a screener, which Donovan has done a fair bit of. Having Darius coming in from the weak side, like I think there's ways to get creative to alleviate some of the pressure, because I think when you have like 4 or 5 trips down the court where you're being hounded by a Jalen Suggs or you're being hounded by Gary Harris and they're being really physical, like you're going to make mistakes there if you don't get a little bit of a breather. And I think increasing the amount of variance in terms of who's bringing it up and how you're initiating your sets can help give those guys the breather that can maybe help prevent some of those frustrating turnovers. Like, we tend to view every single play in a vacuum where it's like, oh God, what, that's a lazy pass. That's a boneheaded mistake. But sometimes it's those body punches of the on-ball defense and the pressure that from the previous like 5-6 possessions that gets you into a position or gets you to a point of being so fatigued that you make those type of mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's probably time to talk about Max, who welcome to the playoffs, Max. 16-6-5, 2 steals. Really fought on defense. He got a couple rough whistles, man. But he also drew a couple huge charges on Paolo. Got up 10 3-point attempts, which I think is really important. And And I think in this series, Max had kind of just stopped taking them. He was kind of playing almost like, hey, I'm not getting super clean looks. They're not coming off my hand very well. I'm going to try to force the issue. And like, I think this team is actually better served with him taking one or two more reckless threes. If he's pulling faster on all the other ones. And I thought he was a huge beneficiary of Darius's playmaking tonight. He was in the right position and ready to fire. And I just, it was really, really, really important for them to get this kind of game out of him. Because with no Jared Allen, like, you needed that 15 to 20 points from somewhere.
Yeah.
And Max obliged, and like, really happy for him, because I feel like he's just been working his ass off all series and really hasn't had a ton to show for it. And he was hugely important for them tonight.
Yeah, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come, right? Like, this is a veteran shooter. This is a guy that isn't going to be deterred by missing shots early in the series. And, the ways that he contributes, like, we've loved all season long how he hits the boards, how he's been playing on defense, the playmaking, all the other kind of stuff that Max brings has been so valuable. But after game 4, we said, like, he needs to do the thing he was brought here for, which is make shots. They desperately needed someone to make shots. And, the Cavs had a pretty solid shooting night, 35% from 3. Better than that, obviously, when you remove the 1 of 7 from Donovan. But guys stepped up, whether it was Max, whether it was Marcus Morris hitting some big time threes. The veterans that have, he had some damn significant ones, man. Like that was some big time shot making from guys that had been part of deep playoff runs. So, for Max to step up in this way, like, it's impressive. This is what you want to see. This is why he's here. And you just hope that, you can build momentum from it, because every game in the playoffs, when you win, it's the best time in the world, and you nothing can stop you. When you lose, it's the end of the world. But this is often like, we're heading into game 6 with a chance to close out the series and play the Boston Celtics, who maybe without Kristaps Porzingis for a series. We'll see if Jared Allen is available for that game, but like, this is a hell of an opportunity, man. Like, this is an absolute hell of an opportunity. And
before we look ahead, though, we got to talk about the Morris thing, because it's hugely important. So we talked about this after game 4, where we were like, okay, he's given, we didn't think, even though Niang struggled through the first couple games, we didn't think that JB was going to kind of make big changes until, like, he needed to. He wanted to buy, someone like Niang, who's been a freaking soldier. Fun fact, this is the first game all season George Niang did not play in, which is crazy.
Yeah.
He's been such a soldier for this team, and played all 82, and but it just wasn't happening in this series. And before the series, I worried that it might not be a great Niang series, and he's had clean looks and just didn't hit him. So with the Cavs backs up against the wall a little bit, he goes to Marcus Morris, and boy was he good in this game. He did, I thought, a really nice job in the defensive end. I thought he moved his feet pretty darn well on when he was matched up on Paolo or Franz in his 26 minutes.
I kept getting worried, because it seemed like there's a couple times, like, his foot got caught on the court, or whether it's a rolled ankle or whatever, and he'd have like a little bit of a limp. I'm like, please, we can't lose him right now, because these minutes have been so valuable.
Yeah. And then, something I talked about shortly after the acquisition, and he had a couple solid games. There's a lot of value in him being able to hit the 3, but also having the in-between game where if you really fly at him, he doesn't have to get all the way to the rim to score, because Dean does not have an in-between game. George does not really have an in-between game. Both those guys got to get all the way to the hoop if they're going to score. They're not going to take mid-rangers. And the fact that when the Magic flew past him on a closeout, he could just take that dribble in and hit a baseline 18-footer it's not the most efficient shot, but it's like sometimes having that in your bag just changes the way teams close out on you. And I thought, go ahead.
That's what I want from Donovan. That's what I want from Darius. I want that because that is the shooting pocket that the Magic are giving you, especially when they're really like, coming up on your shoulder and running you off the line. That's the shot that's available. And the Cavs, I'm repeating myself, but so much of a playoff series is finding the things that work and sticking with them and forcing them to change what they're doing. And the Cavs, when we were a high volume 3-point shooting team, when we're making those finals runs, it wasn't just about getting to the rim, which we had a lot of rim pressure with LeBron, with Tristan, with Kyrie's ability to get to the rim. It was often when teams were trying to run us off the 3-point line or take away the paint, those mid-range 18-footers that Kyrie, hey, you're going to run me off the line. I'm going to take a dribble in and I'm pulling up from 18 feet. Jalen Brunson does a great job of that, where he comes off of those little screens or whatever you're trying to do on the perimeter defensively, pulls up and takes the shot that's available. And if you hit enough of those, it's going to force either the help to overreact and come up and open up opportunities underneath the rim. It's going to open up opportunities at the 3-point line. And I think it's a really smart point of yours to point out how Marcus Morris does that, right? Like he does have that in-between game, and that keeps the defense honest.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a crazy high points per possession shot in the postseason if it slightly affects the way the closeouts are going to play. Like, I mean, guys were just flying at Niang. And especially when it was like Jonathan Isaac, it's like, it's just not going to happen, So obviously a huge game for Morris. I don't think that like if the Cavs get out of this series that it just means Niang's done for the postseason. Sometimes matchups are just what they are and they're tough, and and we don't know if Dean Wade's coming back or not if they get to the next round. So the rotation, I wouldn't consider this like a done and dusted. It just has to be Morris every single game from now on. But
game 6.
But yeah. but game 6, I'm certainly starting. That's going to be plan A until it doesn't work. Because I thought
would you start him?
No, I would roll with what they had.
I think so too. Because I mean, hopefully Jared can play, right? Like,
here's the only counter, and I did wonder about this. If Gary Harris isn't able to go,
who do they go with?
They might just start Jonathan Isaac. And if they do, you might need to start Morris just to get a little extra shooting over someone like Okoro.
And also just length on the glass.
Yeah.
Because that's another area where Isaac can contribute for sure.
So, like, if they start Isaac, first off, that'll be really interesting because, again, it makes him a point of attack defender more than a help defender, because I think Darius and Donovan like it when Paolo and Franz are guarding them in this series. I think those are matchups that they tend to feel like they can turn the corner on, whereas they have not, regularly beaten Suggs or Isaac off the bounce. So if it is Isaac, I think you might want to look at a change, but it's gonna be an interesting decision for Jamal Mosley if Harris can't go.
Yeah, and I think
also Jarrett might play. We don't know.
Yeah, right. I'm being optimistic here. Shocker, I know. But considering this was a game time decision and we got 2 days off before the next game,
here's hoping.
Obviously, that's significant for Donovan. That's significant for Darius with his back. That's significant for everyone that needs a trip to the ice tub and whatnot. But yeah, hopefully it's enough for Jared, because we need him in this series. We need the Cavs. Like, this is going to be the first time that the Orlando Magic are playing in a win or go home game, right? Like, that's going to be a pressure. Even though they've been great at home, even though the Cavs have struggled on the road, we've seen
they know they gave us a great punch in this game.
They gave us a really, really great punch, and it wasn't enough. They thought that they had it. Franz talking that mess after getting, a bailout call and missing a layup, bricking the free throw and thinking that they had it won. Mo talking his mess. Like,
nothing makes you hate a team like a long playoff series, man. I had nothing but positive vibes for the Magic going into the series, and I hate them all now.
Are you ready? Are you ready to call Franz Tobias Harris from the Autobahn again?
I'm not ready for that. That's still your bag.
He's been too good in this series to do that, unfortunately. But yeah, I have hate in my heart for this team. It's probably carryover from 2009 as well. But absolutely, there's a healthy sports hate here, and that's the best. But like I said, this is the first time that we've seen this group win a must-win game, and it feels so good that they were able to pull this off. We'll see if they can close things out in 6, because there is a hell of an opportunity ahead of them. But it's going to come down to taking care of business, doing the things that have given you success in the past, learning from the mistakes that you've made in this series. They had a great first half in game 4 against Orlando. Second half didn't go that well. I think they figured some things out, and hopefully, they can continue to take the lessons from this series and apply it to the games moving forward, because if they take care of business and Darius is aggressive and Mobley's playing the defense that he is, and everyone that stepped up in this game steps up in Orlando, they can absolutely close this out in 6.
Yeah, and I would advise them to try really, really hard to. One, to prove to themselves a little bit that they can succeed on the road where they have not succeeded in any postseason setting, and to start prepping for a Goliath second round matchup if they can get there. But you also can't count your chickens before they hatch. They gotta put this team away. If this Magic team has shown me anything, is that there is no,
they can win 2 games in a row. There is
no knockout punch that's gonna send them to the mat for 10 seconds. You gotta win by the judges' count. You gotta beat this team, and you have to beat them with prolonged and sustained effort. And credit to them for being such a crazy, tough adversary, which, by the way, I said they would be. Everyone was laughing after the first 2 games. I think they've been tough as hell, and really, really posed a lot of interesting challenges for us. But at this point, you have them on series point, so go finish it off.
Yeah. I said before, I wanted to see this Cavs team tested, and they certainly have been. This Orlando Magic team was not at the top of the Eastern Conference standings for most of this year by accident, right? Like, they are a very good team. They're a tough team. They're a team that's on the rise. They're a team with a superstar in Paolo Banchero and a likely future all-star in Franz Wagner. This is a very, very good team, and the Cavs are going to have to work hard to win it. Can't make the argument that we would get rest time by winning in 6 versus 7, but you would play 1 less game, and I think that's important. But they did announce that game 1 against Boston would be Sunday if the Cavs are to win in 6. So you get the 1 day off. Not a lot of time for series previews.
Unless Miami wins game 5, which they very well could.
You know what? I forgot about that. I forgot that there's another side of this coin. So we'll see what happens there.
But I'm not worrying about any Boston series or rest advantage, because I think Orlando could absolutely send this to 7. Once you're still
win the series.
Yeah,
they can still win the series.
Once you are in a game 7, everything's thrown out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully Jared will be back for game 6. Hopefully everyone that's dealing with ailments can get it to a point where they're ready to perform in that game, and that the Cavs can close it out. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click the notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.